I never thought a quiet Tuesday at the Seaside Café would turn into the conversation that rewired my heart. My neighbor, yes, the man who always nods across the fence and fixes squeaky hinges without being asked, sat down across from me and spoke from a place so honest it felt like standing in a warm tide. I walked in for coffee. I walked out with the kind of truth that makes you see your life in a new light. You won't believe what I learned about him, and about myself. Before I start, I'd love to know where you're joining me from. Tell me in the comments which city you're watching us from. New York, Dallas, Phoenix, a small town by the water. I'm Kayla, I'm 45, and this is the kind of story that makes a person breathe a little deeper. The morning began with a gull's cry, and the hush of the tide dragging its lace across the sand. The Seaside Café sits on a corner where the road bends toward the pier, a squat blue building with a white trim like a sailor's collar. Inside, the air carried the sweet weight of cinnamon and the sharp comfort of fresh coffee. I went because the house felt a little too quiet, and I was losing an argument with my to-do list. The cafe knows how to hold a person without asking questions. Caleb was already there. He was by the window, the one with the view of the lifeguard stand, sunlight laid across his shoulders like a well-worn coat. Caleb is the kind of man who moves carefully, as if he's making sure the floor has a chance to prepare before he steps. He's my neighbor. Our porches face the same stretch of ocean, and we've lived a few yards apart for 2 years, long enough to swap spare eggs and weather predictions, not long enough to trade secrets. He glanced up, offered that familiar small nod, and I felt the twist in my stomach that comes when someone steady looks glad to see you. "You on a coffee rescue mission too?" he asked when I came near. His voice carries a low, easy gravel like a truck starting on a cool morning. "I'm considering coffee an act of public safety today," I said. "If I don't get a cup, someone's going to hear me sing in the cereal aisle again." He smiled, and the corners of his eyes made a roadmap. "Sit with me." I saved the good view. The table was crowded with little things, 2 napkins, a sugar packet folded like a paper crane, a tiny spiral notebook with a red elastic band. Caleb didn't usually carry anything that looked like it belonged in a classroom. I eased into the chair opposite him and tried not to stare at the notebook. Outside, a couple walking their dachshund let the little dog pause to bark at a wave, and the whole cafe chuckled as if we were a family at a joke, only we understood. We talked about small things first. The wind had changed. The last storm had pushed seaweed into our cove. His truck was making a new sound that meant either a belt or the beginning of an argument with destiny. The cinnamon rolls came warm, frosting melting into soft rivers. I tore mine in half and pushed a piece toward him. He shook his head, then changed his mind, and took it with an almost boyish satisfaction. The ordinary kindness of sharing food eased us both. He cleared his throat. "Kayla," he said, and my name in his voice felt like a pebbled path. Solid, familiar, a little rough. "I asked you to sit because there's something I want to say. Been wanting to for a while, and I figured if I waited for the perfect minute, it'd never come." There it was, the small notebook, nudged toward me like a shy dog. I didn't touch it. Old habits kept me patient when a person needed time to arrange their courage. Outside, a wave flexed its shoulder and folded, hissing as it collapsed into foam. "I'm listening," I said. It surprised me how true that felt. I wasn't just waiting for my turn to speak. I wanted to listen like it mattered. "You know I'm not much for speeches," he said, "and I don't want to make your coffee heavy. But I've been doing a lot of thinking about how the past sneaks into your pockets, how you go walking around with it, thinking you're free, and then you reach in for your keys and pull out an old memory instead." I nodded. My past has a way of ringing the doorbell around dinner time. He looked relieved. Yeah, that. When my brother got sick, I started carrying a notebook because the doctors threw new words at us every day. After he passed, I kept writing. Habit. Helps me get through the static. I write maybe 3 lines a morning, like listening to the ocean with a pencil. His thumb tapped the notebook's edge. He didn't blink much, and I could see he was holding a steady line. I know we're neighbors, he said. I know there's a fence there for a reason, and I respect it. But some mornings, I'll be honest, the thing that gets me off the porch is hearing you hum while you water your herbs. You hum like the world is fixable. I guess what I'm saying is, thank you. My cheeks warmed. It wasn't a flirt, not really. It was something more careful. I didn't know you could hear me, I said, and then laughed because of course he could. Our houses are close enough that a sneeze is a social event. I didn't know anyone liked it. I do it to calm myself down before emails. Sometimes, he said, I write down the song I think it is. I never get it right, but it helps. He paused, glanced toward the window, and then looked back at me with the kind of attention a person gives to the last line of a letter. I don't want to make this strange, but there's another thank you I need to say, and it's heavier. He turned the notebook to face him and slipped the elastic free. Hands steady, he opened to a page marked by a grocery receipt. He didn't push it to me. He just kept his fingers there, holding the paper like a little bridge. Last week, he said, I was patching the step on my porch. You were carrying in a bag of soil from the trunk, one of those big sacks that always rips right when you think you've got it. You didn't see me watching. The bag split, and you laughed at yourself and said, well, Kayla, the earth wanted out. Let it breathe. You were talking to the dirt, like it mattered. It made me remember my mother. She talked to her roses when my dad worked nights. She said every living thing needs to hear a voice. He slid the notebook closer, and this time I touched it. The paper was warm from his hand. He'd written in a careful print, straightforward, no flourishes. A date. Then, heard Kayla laugh at a bag of soil. Thought about Ma talking to roses. Maybe today isn't as hard as I told myself. There was a line drawn beneath it, the way some folks mark off a page to say, enough. Start again tomorrow. I felt something inside me unclench. It wasn't romance, at least not in the simple way the word gets tossed around. It was an honesty with no defense around it. I realized I'd wanted that more than I'd wanted anything lately. A conversation that treated the small things as holy. Caleb, I said, and had to stop because his name tasted like a promise. I don't know what to say, except, thank you for letting me see that. He nodded, and his shoulders lowered in a small exhale, as if permission had been granted and a door creaked open in a quiet room. I've been carrying something else, he said. A fear that I don't know how to be new in my own life. I fix boards and oil hinges. I can make a door swing smooth. But when it comes to my own heart, I keep sanding the same spot. I tell myself I don't need any help. And then I hear you hum through the morning, and it sounds like someone saying, you can start over without making a speech about it. I glanced down at the page again and saw a second entry from a different day. Kayla's porch light at 5:42 a.m. still shows up for the morning. Maybe I can too. A woman in a navy apron brought more hot water for my tea and topped off Caleb's coffee. The cafe door opened with its familiar jingle, and a draft of salt air moved through the room, lifting the napkin edge. People came and went with the quiet purpose of a harbor morning. Fishermen buying coffee to go, tourists tugging a map, a grandmother with a toddler and a serious list of pastry priorities. The world was busy not noticing us, which made it easier to say the next thing. "I've been stuck too," I confessed. "My marriage ended a while back, and I keep pretending I'm a fast learner. Truth is, I got good at taking care of things and forgot how to let someone take care with me. Not take care of me, just take care with me." He breathed in like the word meant air. Yes, that. Take care with. There was a soft quiet after that. Not the hush of running out of conversation, but the kind that shows up when two people lay their tools down and lean on the workbench, looking at what they've been trying to build alone. "I don't know the right order for this," he said finally. "But I want to tell you something plain. I like being your neighbor. I like the way you talk to dirt, and how you leave the porch light on even when you don't have to, like it's an altar to the morning. I don't want to make you uncomfortable. I don't expect anything. I just needed to say it with respect. If all that ever means is that we keep nodding over the fence and sharing cinnamon rolls sometimes, I'll count myself lucky. But if there's room in your life for a walk along the pier or a conversation that lasts past the first cup, I'd like that. No hurry, no pressure, just truth." He didn't look away or try to rescue me from the weight of deciding. He let the words sit between us like tidewater, clear and moving. The respect in that, letting me choose without crowding the choice, felt like a gift I'd forgotten to ask for. I surprised myself by reaching across the table. I put my hand on the notebook. Not his hand, not yet, because there are steps to these things and each step matters. And I said, "I'd like that too." We didn't make a big ceremony out of it. No grand vows, no nervous jokes. We just sat there with steam rising from our cups and the whole ocean breathing beyond the glass. After a while, he said, "I do this breathing thing when the old thoughts get loud. Learned it years back when I thought panic was a personality trait. 4 in, 4 hold, 6 out. Want to try with me?" I nodded. He watched my shoulders more than my face, making sure I was comfortable. We inhaled together, counted 4, held it just long enough for stillness to show up, then let it go slow. 6 counts feels like a small eternity when you're not used to it. By the 3rd round, the inside of the cafe seemed brighter. It sounded simple, but it felt like walking out of a shadow you didn't know you were standing in. He didn't reach for my hand. He asked, "May I?" I looked at him, at the scar along one knuckle, and the clean half-moons of his nails, the way he was offering without taking. "Yes," I said, and set my hand palm up on the table. He placed his palm lightly against mine, not woven together, just resting. 2 people, the same table, the same tide murmuring its old story. The contact was small and kind and entirely consensual, like a porch light left on when you pull into the driveway late and tired. I felt the strangest mixture of safety and surprise. My heartbeat didn't race. It settled. The older I get, the more I value the difference. We let go when the waitress returned with a plate of sliced oranges she said were going lonely in the fridge. We thanked her. Caleb took the smallest wedge and made a joke about rationing sunshine. I laughed, and it sounded like a version of me I hadn't heard in a while. He paid the bill, not as a claim but as a courtesy, and asked if I wanted to walk to the pier. I did. Outside, the wind had a bite that promised summer was still doing its push-ups, but not ready to show off. Pelicans skimmed the surface like they were reading a line of text only they could see. We walked without rushing, talked about old trucks and good pie, about the teacher who taught him to measure twice, cut once, and the librarian who once slipped me a book after hours because she said it had been waiting for me. Every so often our arms would brush, accidental and then not accidental. When we reached the rail at the end of the pier, he took off his cap and grinned at the horizon like it had told him a joke. "I brought something to ask," he said, and his voice shifted into that careful register again. "There's a bench up by the bluff. I sit there sometimes at dusk. There's room for you if you ever want it. No schedule. I'll leave a note when I'm going, if that helps. I don't want to intrude. I just want the possibility open." Possibility. The word felt like a soft-edged stone in my pocket, solid and smooth. I thought of all the years I'd filled my calendar with obligations and left no space for what could happen if I allowed it. I imagined that bench, the way light changes when day rolls itself up like a towel and sets it aside. I imagined being seen without being hurried. "Yes," I said. "Let's try it. Slowly. Like people who know the ocean changes its mind every hour." He looked relieved in a way that made me care more for him. It's something to witness a strong person set down a weight you didn't know they had been carrying. We didn't make plans beyond that. We turned back toward the café, and on the way he told me about a broken hinge on my back gate he'd been meaning to fix, and I told him about a tomato plant that had gotten bold and was attempting to annex the rest of my garden. We parted at the corner where our street splits, with a small wave that felt like a promise of more conversations, not a debt. Back home, I stood on my porch a minute longer than usual, listening to the hush between waves. My herbs needed watering, and without thinking I hummed a little, something tuneless and bright and exactly right for a kitchen sink and a sun-warmed afternoon. Across the fence, I saw the tilt of Caleb's cap as he bent over a toolbox, a man occupied with a hinge that would open and close better for the attention. I didn't need to know whether he could hear me. It was enough to know I wasn't afraid to make music in my own house. I want to tell you this part because it matters. Nothing dramatic happened. No fireworks, no movie score kiss. What happened was gentler and, in its way, braver. 2 neighbors told the truth at a small table in a cafe that smelled like cinnamon and salt. We asked permission. We listened. We let our hands rest where the other could feel them, not pressing for more than the moment could carry. We made room for a future we didn't need to define yet. Maybe that doesn't sound like much from the outside. But if you've ever stood on a pier and felt the boards soften under your feet with the swell of the tide, you know how much the smallest rise and fall can shift your balance. I felt that shift. I felt something inside me deciding to be new. I rinsed the watering can and set it to drip dry by the back door. The sky was moving toward afternoon, the kind of light that makes every window look like a held breath. I sat on the step with a towel under me and thought about the bench on the bluff, about the quiet game of leaving space for another person, about how respect is a kind of music too. That's how it began, at a table with a notebook and a confession that didn't ask for anything in return. I don't know yet how it will end. I just know I'm ready to keep listening. And when evening comes, if the porch is a little brighter than necessary, that's because sometimes you leave the light on for possibility. The week moved along with the kind of quiet rhythm that makes you think nothing remarkable is about to happen again. But sometimes life saves its best turns for the moments when you think the story has already been told. After that morning in the café, Caleb and I carried on like neighbors do, nodding from our porches, swapping the occasional smile over the fence, speaking gently as if testing the ground before stepping further. Yet, under the ordinary, something steady was building, like the tide pulling back before it rushes in stronger. One evening, I saw the note he promised. It was slipped under my doormat, plain paper folded once, the words written in his careful hand. Heading up to the bluff at dusk. There's room for you. See, it wasn't a question, but it wasn't a demand either. It was an invitation carved out of respect. My first instinct was to hesitate, to list excuses. The dishes, the laundry, the long day. But as the sun slid lower, painting the sky a soft watercolor of pink and gold, I realized the only thing standing between me and the possibility he'd spoken of was my own fear. So I went. The path to the bluff winds between dune grass and weathered benches. The air smelled like salt and cedar, and the cries of gulls stretched long against the horizon. I spotted Caleb before he saw me, his frame leaning slightly forward, elbows resting on his knees, hat in his hands. He looked like a man waiting without expectation, the kind of waiting that comes from patience rather than desperation. That, more than anything, gave me courage to walk closer. When he heard my steps on the gravel, he looked up. His smile wasn't wide. It was the small, relieved kind, like he'd found something he thought he might have misplaced. "You came," he said, standing as if to meet me halfway. "I did," I answered, surprised at how steady my voice was. "I figured the dishes could wait. The ocean can't." We sat on the bench together, a space left between us, not out of distance but out of courtesy. The view was worth the climb. The water stretched endlessly, darker now with streaks of copper where the sun bulled into the horizon. Fishing boats blinked their lights like quiet signals, and the air cooled enough that I pulled my cardigan closer. Caleb noticed, but he didn't offer his jacket right away. He waited, the way he seemed to wait for everything, letting me choose. "Kayla," he said softly, "I wasn't sure if you'd come, and I wouldn't have blamed you if you hadn't. But I'm glad you did. There's something about this spot. It makes me want to say things I don't usually let out." I leaned back against the bench and let the wood steady me. Funny. That's what I was thinking on the way up. Like the air here doesn't carry secrets as far. He chuckled at that, a warm, low sound. "You're right. This is where I used to come with my brother, back before his illness got bad. We'd sit here and make plans, fixing up the boat, repainting the porch, things we never got around to. After he passed, I couldn't sit here for months. Felt like the bench remembered too much. But lately, I've been trying again, trying to let the remembering heal me instead of hollow me out." I listened the way he'd listened to me at the café. His honesty had no polish, no decoration. It was raw wood, knots and all, and somehow more beautiful for it. I thought about the times I'd sat alone at my kitchen table, staring at bills or recipes or nothing at all, pretending that solitude was strength when it was sometimes just loneliness in a nice coat. "I know what you mean," I said. "After my marriage ended, I couldn't even sit in my own living room. The silence in there was too loud, so I'd wander the house, finding excuses to be in every other room. It took me a long time to sit down again without feeling like the walls were watching me." He turned to me then, eyes steady, and for a moment the world hushed. "Thank you for telling me that. It's hard to say out loud, isn't it? That sometimes we're just surviving the silence." I nodded. "It is, but it feels different here. Easier somehow." We watched the waves climb and fall, the kind of rhythm that reminded me of a heartbeat. Caleb finally shifted